welcome back, y'all. We got the Reds versus the Reds, the Shanghai Dragons versus the Shock Academy team O2 Blast, who faced their first series loss in God knows how many years against the Seoul Infernal. But it was almost a reverse sweep. How will they do against the Dragons?
Much better, Lemon. Much better. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna run around and let's just say that this is gonna be a coughing Pachamari versus a Diva Bomb. Thanks for the banger, Guangzhou Charge social team. Absolute bits being done over there. Shanghai Dragons versus O2 Blast. This is, yes, contenders versus Owl, but O2 Blast are a legendary team. Did you know that across about 6 years of competition, maybe 5 years of competition, 2023 being their 6th, O2 Blast in just contenders have won over $500,000, $512,000 won from all of their contenders' dominance, and they weren't even at the absolute top of Korea until about 2020 because they still had to compete with Runaway, with Element Mystic. They were splitting the prize money with those guys. O2 Blast, they are on the up and up, and Shanghai Dragons, they are having a down and down season thus far. And we saw they lost to Simpressa Gaming. We just saw Simpressa Gaming. Worrying.
Yeah, that's why I say I don't know how I'm gonna feel, because my whole bracket has gone into the bin. But this is an important match for one player in particular, Viper on the Shanghai Dragons, facing his former team of the O2 Blast, the one O2 Blast that he dominated with in 2022. He's a young, scrappy player at 17 years old, and he's the tracer to be feared in this lobby.
Yeah, Viper going up against his understudies in Knife and Top Dragon, who was, of course, actually acquired from Simpressa Gaming. O2 Blast, kind of like San Francisco Shock, their parent team, is a team that gets first dibs on a huge amount of talent. But looking over at Shanghai Dragons, like, we've got Fletter, who's a generational player, former MVP on a previous role of damage, getting the Echo skin out. Less impressive on the tank, but still very much doable for Flutter to try and make a resurgence. On the other side, we've got a far more experienced tank player in Marvel, who it feels has been a bit of a mercenary across a bunch of Overwatch League teams throughout his career. And, well, supporting him, Opener, definitely showed off quite a bit last year on Washington Justice. I think that Opener definitely was someone to watch on that roster, definitely came out as a big Lucio player, and the Brig likely going to be coming out a lot more from O2 Blast.
Yeah, Marvel was looking a bit AI generated on that photo. I'm glad that he actually exists. And so did the rest of O2 Blast, who almost reverse swept the Seoul Infernal, who are sitting at that top 2 seeding when it comes to the Owl qualifiers. Shanghai find themselves in last place, and they lost to SPG in their very first quarterfinal. That's how Shanghai Dragons are even here. But a win here would mean that they get past SPG, who fell earlier. If you missed that series, it was a quick one. It would be a quick rewind. And I'm excited to see how the boys in red are going to do against the boys in red.
Everyone's in red, and everyone will be drenched in red when this Murder Bowl is complete. It might well be a massacre, but it could be a two-way street as we head over to Oasis as our control map. O2 Blast, well, Shanghai Dragons. I'm not gonna lie to you, Lemon. They have the potential to do something really funny and upset O2 Blast here. But also, if that happens, we finally get the Moon Bowl. The Moon versus Fate. The tank that was dropped to put Fletter from DPS onto tank. Shanghai Dragons versus Panthera. I am willing with all of my soul for that to happen. But I must have my soul meet reality halfway, and I don't think it will.
And Knife and Probe are going to be starting for O2 Blast. Knife has been playing a lot of Tracer as of late. Top Dragon 2 interchanges with Knife on that role, but Top Dragon also has a Genji in his back pocket, was yoinked away from SPG to obviously join a more successful and lucrative team. And on Probe's side of things, hits can flex. I think O2 Blast can really play anything. It was interesting to see them play against Seoul and Infernal. I've never seen O2 Blast flounder as much as they did. They almost reverse swept, but my notes go on for pages and pages of how many compositional swaps they made trying to figure things out.
You could also look at that as maybe some depth in the playbook, as well as panic, of course. O2 Blast have had a week since then to try and figure out what cracks need to be plastered over as we head over. Oh, that's not Oasis. That's Ilios.
It's looking orangey like Oasis.
Curious. Where are we going?
Off. Took my glasses off, it would be Oasis.
It is Oasis.
See, even the crowd agrees. Yeah. Small chant.
Big chant. O2 fans. Well, wouldn't surprise me. O2, of course, have done a bunch of LAN in Korea. Most of the Contenders career stuff happens on LAN, and O2 Blast are no strangers to that. Rollouts of Symmetras on either side. And Shanghai Dragons going for a classic double flanker dive here compared to O2 Blast, who prefer a little bit more poke coming through from the Hanzo of Probe.
I thought that one guy in the crowd was giving a speech, so I was stun-locked, trying to understand when I don't speak Korean, so it sounded inspirational there for a second.
I'm allegedly inspired.
Mrs. Pipe's giving all her energy too with the chance. You love to see it at the WDG studios. O2 Blast really putting the pressure on. Iris getting hunted by Knife, who has his sights set on the back line. Now puts his eyes back on Fleta, trying to shred that tank. O2 Blast. They're already up by 1 and now 2. O2 Blast kind of running this lobby already.
O2 Blast all about that tempo. Just corralling Shanghai Dragons into an area where it was easy to find access for both openers, whip shots, and Knife with a huge amount of probing damage. Look at Knife, almost twice as much ult charge as anyone else on the team, has been tearing through Shanghai Dragons and just putting people into positions where they could be picked off by something like a simple whip shot from opener.
And Knife has pulse first. 34% ahead of Viper, who was the first pick from the Shanghai Dragons. We're still just trying to get through this initial choke, maybe setting their eyes on kind of that center pillar where O2 Blast are sitting, but always on this high-rise side is Knife, but he's being marked by Viper, dueling him. I think it might have been Viper that grabbed the Mega, pulse against the wall from Knife, splashes into Iris, but not enough to claim the kill. As O2 Blast do pick off that backliner of Hisu, who managed to assassinate Probe last time and marked him a lot better. Viper has come alive, though, on this Tracer, that young gun facing his former team, but he's going up against a nanoed opposition of Knife. As O2 Blast feel this fight is still winnable, but Knife goes towards the supports. That nano is drained. The supports peel against that Tracer well. Knife falls back, and the point goes to Shanghai.
Sleep is good, but won't last long. Remember, on a new patch now, that sleep dart only lasting 3 seconds against the tanks. Primal Rage as well. Does Fleta have the mechanics to make it work? Probe's going to escape. And oh, it's just a touch too deep. Now down a tank. Shanghai Dragons might have to pull some emergency switches here. Those include the EMP and the rally to try and rebuff an O2 Blast counter-offensive here.
Yeah, Fleta went in way too deep. And still trying to get used to this new role. Although, obviously, he's been on tank for a hot second. I still see Fleta as that DPS player, able to just go in that deep, kind of like a Tracer. But rally from opener as O2 Blast go towards the point. Knife, Pulse, and Marvel with the Primal. Shanghai Dragons so weak, and this rally of Ganumjin is not helping anybody. Iris removed as well. An easy fight for O2 Blast to take.
You want to see a Primal? I'll show you a Primal, says Marvel. Quick double. Well supported. Knife moving in to add the damage to those as well. And Hisu's still waiting for this EMP. Man, do be slow, Lemon. He's stuck in a time loop right now, trying to find the optimal EMP, but I think at this point you try and just get 1 or 2 people and just concentrate into getting a singular pick and then snowballing from there. You can't wait for the perfect EMP with 90% for O2 Blast.
He's just trying to sync with Fleta, who is coming out of spawn. Even when Hisu had a good EMP, Fleta's not on the same page. And we have to connect the dots here and now. If you're the Dragons, 40%, but the point is for O2. Pulling the trigger is Marvel, has the nano, goes towards Gangnojin and Iris. Fleta is there for the peel. Hisu EMP when it doesn't really matter. They play so reactive and not proactive, and this might bite Dragons in the butt. Viper can make a miracle happen, has to go in touch. The pulse does barely miss opener, who bashes away. Viper keeps the overtime wick burning, but Shanghai are missing a front line, but in the back, Hisu, assassination assisted by Iris, as Shanghai might have built themselves a road brick by brick towards this point, and Fleta's back with Nano.
I'm really forced to back off here. An opener will negotiate their way around that shield. Shanghai Dragons finally get the cap, but basically all of O2 Blast are here and ready. Marvel with a Primal Rage forcing Hisu's translocate. And that's going to put Shanghai Dragons on the back foot.
Ooh, close but no cigar. O2 Blast is beating them down. Dragon Strike, Primal, more invested from O2 Blast. You want to finish off this round? Look both ways before you cross, because it's O2 Blast coming at you hot in round 1.
It isn't the car coming down the street you need to look for. It's the monkey coming from the sky. Still someone around to maybe touch, but I'm afraid this is all that this round has for us here, Lemon. For the Shanghai Dragons, I do wonder, Gangnam Jin, 18% Inspire uptime, not really a hugely impactful stat, but I think it does betray the fact that Gangnam Jin is missing quite a few whip shots. Whether that's from Marvel putting down the shield at the optimal time during the dive, what would be not ideal for the actual dive itself, but much better at trying to rebuff the whip shot coming in to actually deal maximum damage. Of course, Marvel, much more experienced Winston player, in particular, compared to Flatter, who's only had a couple of months on this role. I do think that Gangnam Jin needs to be hitting more of these whip shots, though, to make sure that Marvel is kept at bay. Going to be less relevant against the Ram, though.
Yeah, I like the Marvel Primal that we just saw in that replay, because it separated Iris away from the Gangnam Jin rally, and then the coordination between him and Knife to stop the rally before it generated too much. We go to University, where it's the rush off, or at least what you were expecting. Even the Fleta tank you love to see every now and then, but thinking they could try to coordinate once again, get better warmed up on their dive as the Dragons coalesce to that high ground. Marvel bubbled off from his supports, is dropped down back towards the point. O2 Blast, a bit damaged, but unharmed it seems, as Probe hits a headshot on Viper, who wanted to drop down from the coast side. And Dragons find themselves in a 4v5, will be conceding that point possession to O2 Blast. And Dragons now, it's hunting season.
Hisu, wishing to be Lee Su right now. And certainly has got opener, which is going to slow down Marvel's rotations here. Shades of London Spitfire Classic from the O2 Blast. They continually try and boost Marvel up onto the high ground. Gangnam Jin trying to boop it away, but he might put himself into range of these pummels.
Marvel putting pressure on those supports, somehow not able to confirm that onto Iris or Gangnam Jin. Maywall from Knife to just assure that there's no flip from the Shanghai Dragons to seal them off for good. And Knife ice blocking in the face of Hisu. Sees that he doesn't have the bow charged up, wins the duel. O2 Blast now want to re-engage back towards... Oh no, that's Fleta that got nanoed actually, and he has the Primal. This is a great chance for Dragons to retake.
Iris, though, certainly isolated for a moment. Lucia will get on board, and with Marvel being anti, that should be a brutal breaking down of the Ramatra. Indeed it is. Great play there from Iris. Absolutely carrying that fight with both the nano and the anti by Shanghai Dragons, and a touch of much-needed breathing room here. This is going to allow for Hisu to have a much longer poke phase on a slower O2 Blast to have to try and commute their way, transit their way over to the point where Fleta can definitely set up a more advantageous fight. The Winston!
Viper, what you cooking there? They have the point. He doesn't need to go past these staircases. He just needs to creep behind O2. But was clearly looking for a juicy pulse before the fight started. Only a 3-man anti for Gangnam Jin. Dragons are now hit by a blizzard, wishing they had that earlier. Fleta is frozen, removed from the fight, and O2 have all the space to work with and easily retake this point after the punish onto Viper.
Oh, it's so sad, because if you're watching...
His face.
I'm taking you with me, baby! Yep, Hisu do be occasionally Lisu. If Knife had survived, or rather if Viper had survived into that fight, Marvel definitely would have died. He got so low and antied by Iris, but unfortunately the damage wasn't there to really finish him off. Getting a little bit cheeky here with the poke, but notice he's not up against a Mei, and no one can really one-shot him or get on top of him, so it's not really an issue for Marvel to continually use that Void Accelerator.
Well, 83% plus for O2. You got support ultimates coming out. Dragons lose Hisu. How are you in punch range of a Ramatra? Marvel is simply going to beat you to death. Gangnam Jin has found a dark alley and a very juicy Ramatra that is just not leaving him alone. Fleta just tried to keep contesting the point, and Dragons just aren't connecting at all. O2 Blast, though, will be taking game 1.
They simply are not there, Lemon. Oh no. Opener walking away with 5 deaths here, the most on his team by far, but hey, he's a frisky little Lucio. Loves to really test the limits of O2 Blast, and O2 Blast, they certainly are testing Shanghai Dragons as well right now. This isn't a surprising outcome, but It is certainly one that showed a couple of sparks of brightness. We saw Viper get some nice plays over on City Center, and then maybe overestimating how much of a him he was. Going too deep on University. We saw some nice headshots from Hisu, but overall, O2 Blast looking just as regimented as ever.
Yeah, coordination is what's holding Shanghai Dragons back, and also the fact that Fleta is still adjusting to the tank role, and Marvel is just that good. But it is O2 Blast up in game one. We'll see where Shanghai Dragons want to send us to next. The Shanghai Dragons have lost to a contenders team once. They can't let it happen again. And if they do, they're going to lose their chance to go to the mid-season madness. But O2 Blast have been touted as the contenders team to most likely cause an upset and take one of those spots.
Yeah, O2 Blast certainly are huge contenders. The biggest contender in this group for that spot is, of course, for Soul Inferno, who've already defeated the O2 Blast, but boy, was it narrow. An absolute gigabanger of a series. 3-2, almost reverse swept by O2 Blast, but stopped at the last hurdle. But hey, they say that losses, Lemon, they make you stronger, they make you smarter. If that were the case, though, Shanghai Dragons would probably be wielding the Infinity Gauntlet by now. So we'll see if it remains the case for O2 Blast as we head over to our hybrid map. It's Shanghai's pick, and they're going to Kings Row.
And this is a good map for Shanghai, at least that one time, when they faced the Guangzhou Charge, top 2 team in the Overwatch League. Shanghai Dragons, I'm not joking you, full held the Charge and then capped on them. This is the only map that Shanghai was able to win against the Charge, of course, but proving to be a strong one at that. But my issue with the Dragons is their execution of dive. There's kind of 2 ways to approach in a dive versus dive mirror. You either play reactive, where you're maybe peeling for your supports and waiting for the other team to jump onto you, or you counter dive. And I felt like Fleda and Hisu had this disconnect where Hisu wanted to counter dive with EMP on Oasis City Center, and Fleda wanted to peel for Iris and Gangnam Jin. And then when you just don't have a goal in mind, the other team's dive is just going to do more.
A lot of disconnection on the overall strategy. Head into mid-season, Lemon. Shanghai Dragons certainly are a team that we might expect to make a little bit of an adjustment, a bit of a rebuild. I personally am expecting Moon to pick up another support player. We'll see if that's going to be the case. Of course, Shanghai Dragons, their life is not over just yet. Still plenty of maps of his series to give. The Prospective Gang does also.
Blast with first blood. The punish and the marking of Viper whenever he even attempts and even thinks about going on a flank. O2 Blast have his number. Viper was a big reason Dragons flopped the fight on University when Viper went on flanks and got checked, and O2 Blast continued to just have really good map awareness.
Excellent map control. Opener being such a big bully bruiser that makes sure that Hisu can never find those backlines. And that's why Hisu now stopping everyone's for Hanzo, preferring to take a long-range duel with Probe that can't be as adequately influenced by Opener, trying to make sure that Brigitta's getting as little uptime as physically possible.
Like, the crowd is like, oh, it's got me stressed too, pal. O2 Blast are running these streets and they own them too. I think they've noticed Viper on the flank, and O2 Blast have some people in the alleyway pushing him in, as Marvel takes to the alleyway to take these angles around Dragons, who have to coordinate. Remember, the issue with Dragons was their lack of focus, the win condition. What do they want to do? Well, they want to send Fleda with the nano. They have O2 Blast's backs against the wall. But hey, Viper and Knife also going at it with trading blows. Dragons seem to still be ahead in this game, but Knife is slowly edging out Viper in the Tracer game.
Knife in his natural habitat in London. That's a joke for all of my British homies out there. Getting stabbed.
Nice.
That's what I'm talking about. Shanghai Dragons having to give away a huge amount of space here. Having used that nano, Fled almost has the Primal Rager, and that means O2 Blast have to be careful, positioning themselves in narrow spaces where they could definitely be truly bursted down by Fleda's Primal.
Viper has been performing well against Knife, but O2 Blast is getting a few more picks, and they have great initiative. Dragons just pulling the trigger second has not been netting them any success, and O2 Blast playing against the Dragons like they would any other team. O2 Blast with multiple first bloods, and they've activated the rally. Marble is slept in the middle of Primal, so Dragons can breathe a little bit as the rally of Gangnam Jin isn't generating health for Fleta because he's dead, and Dragons can't generate a defense because that's gone too. O2 Blast cap in front of them.
Despite Viper's best efforts and a double, simply cannot be converted into a defense. 5 minutes of a time bank, Lemon. This is brutal for O2 Blast. They have absolutely demolished the Shanghai Dragons defense on the first two. Now, Shanghai Dragons, they have to try and take control of these high grounds, but somehow we've seen Knife able to get up onto the high ground, which is going to be a lot for Fleta to deal with. The damage that a Tracer can do to a Winston when they try and challenge that is substantial.
I was gonna say, Hisu, you're not gonna keep climbing up there, are you? And Dragons wish they had the space, but you gotta concede that O2 Blast are just too good. Marble is now behind, jumping on your Ana. Your supports are left out to dry, and Dragons gotta hope that they're just netting some kind of success on the counter dive if they're gonna leave Iris and Gangnam Jin out. Some picks come through from Hisu. Viper performing well too, but O2 Blast have 4 minutes and 1 fight to go before capping the map.
1 fight to go. Shanghai Dragons still yet to win one, and no real ults coming up to try and make this happen. A Dragon Strike in one hand, a Pulse Bomb in the other. Knife yet again ready to make another incision into the back line. A Sinew in the cartilage will do little to hold back a Pulse Bomb.
Oh, Hisu just wants the high ground. Pulse right at his toes as Hisu lands. No two Blasts want to land at the end of the map. They got less than 4 minutes, but this time bank is huge. Viper is contesting. Fleta going way too deep and barely gets out with like a crumb of HP. And Dragons pull off a defense just by the skin of their teeth.
Finally, a couple of frags are found by Shanghai Dragons. Viper was the one who had to hold down the cart and keep it at bay, just a few meters shy of completion. With 3 minutes on the board, though, O2 Blast far from stymied on this offense. But now Shanghai Dragons, they can start to build a little bit of momentum, control the engagements using the Nano here to allow Fleta to really do some damage to that back line.
The Dragon Strike from Probe goes to the bottom side. O2 Blast activate the rally. Fleta from the high ground doesn't get pushed away. He jumps even deeper and he's under the map somehow and back up. Antied and was also nanoed and not getting enough support and getting LOS'd away from Iris and Gangnam Jin, probably thanks to Knife's pressure as Viper summoned to assist. Good block by Gangnam Jin, but he needs more help than that. O2 Blasts are on the hunt, and Dragons, they're just prey. And O2 Blast are about to lock this in with 2.5 minutes.
Oh, they might be prey, but the gods certainly aren't answering. Only the god of rage and the god of war looks to smack Gangnam Jin into a wall. 2 minutes and 20 on the clock for O2 Blast. Remember, this is the map pick of Shanghai Dragons. This is where they full held Guangzhou charge. Whether it was a fluke or whether it was magnanimous skill on the defense.
It was Cope.
Weapons grade Cope, Lemon. Shanghai Dragons still have an attacking round to get through here. This could still be turned around. My copium reserves can be refilled. I've got a prescription.
I'm trying. I got the microscope out. We're searching for the hope, but hey,
Searching for the win rate.
the conversation. You know, if we zoom out, put away the microscope, we open our eyes to the bigger picture. Everyone has been thinking that there's just this giant gap between Overwatch League teams and Contenders teams. And, you know, that statement was reinforced after the North American Pro-Am, where Contenders weren't able to beat Overwatch League teams, at least enough to get to mid-season madness in that case, or just to have a bigger splash in the Pro-Am, I should say. But O2 Blast, teams like Poker Face, hey, even Dreamers are beating Owl teams, and that was the 6th seed coming out of Korea. You gotta respect the talent that is coming out of APAC.
Certainly is an admirable pipeline.
That's BM from opener.
Yeah, opener. Have a little bit of a jig, a little bit of a boogie in front of a spray. Probe, of course, being able to poke from extreme safety here behind the break shield. There will be plenty of time to react to any ingress of damage that might be coming their way. Is getting Iris up onto the high ground here could be important for Shanghai.
Like, if Iris and Ganamjin can't support Fleta, like, do you swap to Kiriko somehow? Do you drop the Ana, go Kiriko? You keep the Brig for Viper? I'm not sure what would be the solution to help this backline of the Dragons, but maybe the solution is to just hope that Viper carries, wins the Tracer duel, and then the Dragons dive is gonna have more damage. Hisu's also popping off, great to see.
Yeah, critically, we also saw a right click come through there from Fleta as well onto Knife, and that's super important. Oh, Fleta with 2 right click kills at the end. Okay, Mr. MVP. He's a bit of an aimer on the Winston. It's about time we saw some more utility come out of that. There will be no touch here, so Fleta's gonna disengage and let Marvel just feed in a little bit more, but I don't think there's gonna be enough damage to really punish him here. But finally, Fleta and Viper, they're hitting the same targets. So we have the technology, Lemon. The dives can work.
Maybe that's the win condition of the Dragons. Have Viper win the Tracer duel, and then have Viper reconnect with Fleta and dive in afterwards. Because Fleta diving in without support has been a huge issue for the Dragons.
Huge issues. Shanghai Dragons continue to move on forward here. Hisu. We know how much talent this player has. He's always been a bright spot on his rosters. Needs to remain so here.
Marvel vibing. Uh-oh. Fleta also vibing. They've both gotten nanoed. Anti hits Fleta and Viper. And Dragons have their card contested and are just getting tossed from all angles. Marvel from behind. The rest of O2 from the front. Dragons getting sandwiched, but then collapse onto the flankers of O2 and now head to the front. But Dragons are weak on all angles. And O2 Blast scrap their way through the streets phase, and Viper comes out on top.
When these fights in the pits get messy, that's when the Pit Viper strikes. When it comes to the cleanup, he is sublime. And you know what? Flair's doing a much better job of shutting down Knife in these rounds as well. Doing a little bit more to try and take away space from that Tracer and make sure that Probe is shut down as well. I think that Fleta putting more focus here towards shutting down the DPS and less on actually fighting Marvel in those attempts at peeling has been a big help for Shanghai.
Probe is being marked there by Viper. A lot of space for the Dragons, especially off of that pick. Knife is taking back-to-back L's to Viper and the rest of the Dragons, who I guess have identified a weakness out of O2. And as soon as Knife is gone, there's no protection for the backline of O2, and it's like all the dominoes just collapse of this defense. And Dragons might have found the secret sauce, because this snowball is turning into an avalanche.
It is. Once again, I'm getting that feeling of deja vu. Almost 5 minutes on the time bank here. The first 2 points of defense, inconsequential for both teams. It was decided on third, where it's always going to be a battle for these 2 high grounds. Remember, it's very difficult to access them for supports. Can't help out as much in those particular duels, especially with Irony and Opener having to have a much more subdued position here.
Okay, good initiative from the Dragons. They nano Fleta first. Opener has to react with a rally. O2 Blast have a bubble of Fleta's Winston there at the front. They pop that. They're able to scrounge up some good sight lines. Now it's Marvel that's nanoed. The reaction of O2 Blast. Now a Primal to go after Dragon supports. But this rally of Gangnam gets split up from Iris, and it's kill confirmed for Marvel. It's traded 1-to-1, of course, but Hisu's not involved in this fight. But at least you can depend on Viper, who converts multi-kill after multi-kill to give Dragons even a chance at these fights.
Fleta's finally asked himself, when I'm playing Tracer, what is it I want my Winston to do? Dive with me on the same targets. And he's simply playing himself as if he was an AI controlling a second player. Moving in onto the same targets is exactly what Shanghai Dragons need, but with Hisu down, the numbers are not in their favor.
I want to focus on the Hisu now. The Dragons will have to just back away, concede that high ground to Probe, and Dragons don't want to be in any line of sight from that Hanzo, because guess what happens? Probe hits headshots, so Dragons will have to fully reset. You're just getting staggered.
Probe returning to the lobby. Hisu shut him down for a while, kept him quiet. Kept him as a secondary character, even tertiary. But now Shanghai Dragons, they have to move into enemy territory. This is where O2 Blast control the pace, control the angles, and try to make Shanghai Dragons over-resource themselves to try and get through these areas. An early Dragon Strike, maybe somewhat ill-informed.
Just a good old time waster from both sides, but O2 Blast, the defense Holds at the choke, maybe a little farther forward than you would like, usually at the back corner, but as Marvel finds that collapse onto Hisu, he's not able to escape, so you don't have a tank for the defense, so O2 Blast will round the corner, giving Dragons a chance to approach.
Knife can stop us in its tracks with a well-placed pulse. You can see him up there in a little alcove. We'll be able to wrap around onto those supports and potentially immediately remove one instead. Once Flesh, a nice nano!
Oh, Iris saves the day as Dragons gotta be hunting. Fleda's full HP and just camping out, having a snooze fest up there when that was the moment to engage. Maybe wanted Viper to be on the same page. Now Fleda takes unnecessary damage and isn't getting healed back up by Iris. I don't know where the miscom happened for the Dragons, but they flopped the bag.
Fleda playing on that back high ground means what Iris has to take irony. And Iris. They have to play their angles here for the Winston, and Iris having to go a little bit too far forward in order to heal up Fleda is far too risky and can't maintain that kind of pocket. Marvel's got so much freedom to move here, of course, with the Primal Rage can instantly go up to 1000 HP yet again if he desires it, but instead returns to the loving arms of the Ana. Viper might have to carry once more.
Dragons had this, like, 4-minute potential time bank that is now brought all the way down to less than 90 seconds. O2 Blast are able to just trade blow for blow during these fights and forcing this chaos that Dragons just can't seem to thrive through. And it's O2 Blast that communicate that much better. They've been together for a while. New addition, no matter what, they've been able to integrate them. And O2 Blast 1 minute away from holding Dragons at bay.
Well, it controls the high. Still with that Primal Rage. Wasn't used on his last death. Opener. Oh, Opener can't use the rally during this. What a headshot from Hisu.
Big opening for the Dragons, and Probe caught lacking. Should have dropped off, not from that door, but through the side. And Dragons punish these mistakes. They're going on forward. They've lost Hisu, but Viper is still kicking. Wins the Tracer duel. You got the rally. The Dragons losing space because of Marvel's bubble. Viper's attention is summoned back. Marvel jumps back towards his team, and Probe is on the Widow. But Fleda's not going to let him have the space to work with. A fantastic sleep, trying to coordinate the burst damage, but the nano damage mitigation of Iris keeps Fleda alive. Viper is pulling his weight, and the Dragons have 7 seconds to push the cart.
Now it needs to be an overtime. They're playing for the draw at this point, Lemon, but a draw is better than a loss, and Marvel certainly catches the nail at the hands of Fleta and his diving companion. The cart will soar in towards the end. A Bastion has appeared on the scene from Probe.
And that was a last-second touch from Knife. He gives up his life for it, and there's no presence on the cart. So despite a 4 or 5 minute time bank that Dragons had, snowballing all the way to point C, it's brought down to an OT cap, which means O2 Blast just have to get that 33% to go to match point.
Fleta finally having his day in the sun, though, when it comes to this tank trade. Currently 26-6 with 11 final blows. Getting plenty of frags alongside Viper, who of course is having an excellent game. 32-4 with 15 final blows. Viper and Fleta, they finally linked up their brains to get onto these same targets and overwhelm the healing capacity of Opener and Irony, because they're at the same time trying to support Marvel's dives, or he's trying to really limit test the Winston. He's such a expert tank that he really knows how to get the most out of these Winston dives, but requires the pocket of Irony in a position like that to make it happen.
I wish I could give Viper player of the match, even though this is not going the Dragons' direction. 32 limbs, 15 final blows, 11,800 damage, which matches up against Knife in terms of the damage department. But Viper was down several thousand damage to Knife in the first round. And Viper is, if there was a Fleta, I guess Fleta is on his roster or whatever, but the deadlift feels like it's there with how much Viper is making miracles happen.
Opener out here really looking like Mayhem Sir Marjed. Currently on 12 deaths, which is significantly more than anyone else in the lobby. He's the next highest on 10. Once again, this is do or die for a single tier O2 Blast. They could have forced the rush here, but instead, opting into this mirror.
Oh, dangerous sleep. Unable to get the finish on the Fleta, but just getting Dragons out of your face is a win in O2's eyes, who had about 2 minutes or so to get that 33%. It's the first fight for Dragons.
Slowly but surely, the inexorable march of time. does threaten O2 Blast with a draw. Turning over once again onto that Tracer. This is going to give Viper a slight advantage when it comes to the pulse. So maybe thinking they can isolate the Tracer over here with a dive onto the escape route by Marvel, but instead just trying to take space away from Hisu. This blinds for Probe so that he can try and find an angle.
At least Fleta's playing his life a lot better. He's not kind of feeding or overextending. Takes a bit of damage, jumps out, and I like a more conservative Winston than a dead one, that's for sure. Dragons, though, don't have any space because of this kind of passive play, giving O2 a chance to go towards the point, but on the flank, the hotel was free. Viper at the back removes Irony and goes for the second kill onto Opener. The third, the fourth. Viper is a solo man army.
My goodness. O2 Blast have died twice as many times as Shanghai Dragons in this game, despite what we currently see on the scoreline. 49 deaths to 25, and so many of them are coming from Viper on an absolute tear against this former team. There's a reason that I graduated and you're still there.
You know how much this match means to Viper to go up against his former team, and he's showing just that. He is a star, but can the Dragons hold on for another 17 seconds to force the draw on the second one of the day, by the way? O2 Blast just needs a one-fight win. They start with the Primal on the high ground. Three-man ante from Irony. O2 Blast collapse on this backline. Gangnam Jin with the rally barely keeps everyone standing, but without Fleta, Dragons have no presence to keep this contested except Viper, but he steps off only for a second, and O2 Blast go to match point.
It all came down to a big ante from Irony, getting 3 people down low, and I think that Iris panicked and put over the Nano onto an antied Hisu. So I didn't see it on anyone else. The Nano went elsewhere and could not find purchase. Despite the best efforts of Shanghai Dragons, O2 Blast just about squeak it over the line. But if I'm O2 Blast, I'm shaking right now. I'm feeling the fear. Shanghai Dragons brought it to me. And by God, they are not going to be going down easy. They are not going to be eliminated by a contenders team with such ease as we saw Seoul Dynasty get destroyed.
Viper's mauled right now. He's like, I joined the Dragons to be on a better team, and my old team's beating me, the one from contenders. Viper drops 40 and 4. 4 deaths, 14k damage. Diffing Knife on the other side. But the map win is all that matters at the end of the day, and O2 Blast go to match point, and we'll see if the Dragons still got a roar in them. O2 Blast are on match point and one map away from winning their first match against an Overwatch League team, and Shanghai Dragons on the opposite end of things, one map away from losing their second match to a second contenders team. And Shanghai, little AFK, both in-game and currently physically on the chairs.
Yeah, currently they're probably all gathered around Viper, who's just screaming, "I can't do more! I can't do more!" We know, buddy. We know. Viper's having himself a hell of a game. Unfortunately, the rest of Shanghai Dragons, I'll give them props. They played very well on King's Row, and their defense, really good. It all came down to Irony hitting one nade on 3 people, and Irish trying to overcompensate for it by using a nano on a player that got instantly eviscerated, who couldn't get healed up by the nano either. On the side of O2 Blast, though, after what was a troublesome map, they're swapping it up. Top Dragon is in for Knife, and Attack is going to be coming in for Marvel as we go over to Escort. We're going to likely be seeing Attack play the Sigma here, as I believe we're going to...
Sure, if Attack could blink. Turns out the camera's frozen. I've been staring for the longest minute.
He's winning the staring contest.
Attack coming in for Sigma. Top Dragon, I think you bring in him over Knife just because maybe Knife was starting to get outclassed on the Tracer against Viper. Just on King's Row, I felt like it was more evenly matched on Oasis. Actually, here are the stats. Yeah, the crowd, I agree. Viper, less deaths, better pulse bombs, more eliminations, more damage. But that really started to edge out in the second round. Viper just wanted to clutch so bad.
Yeah, we definitely could have seen a far more contentious time bank between the two teams if Shanghai Dragons had played as well on their first point defense the first time around compared to the second. But unfortunately, they folded like a house of cards, as we saw Fleda and Viper unable to acquiesce onto the same targets until they downloaded the dive.exe plan on the second run through. I'm hoping that maybe Shanghai Dragons might be able to operate a little bit better on that. But as we go over to Havana here, it might be increasingly unlikely that we continue to see dive. I don't know much about Fleda's tank hero pool. Obviously, he hasn't had a huge amount of time. We've seen a little bit of Ramatra out of him. I don't know if he plays for Sigma. I think the Ram probably most likely here on Havana. But anything you can do to try and force Viper into this Tracer duel again, even with Knife being out, if you could force someone to try and go Trace to contain Viper, would be a mark in Shanghai's favor, I believe.
Yeah, and there's always the potential of the Hisu versus Probe Widow matchup. I think Fleda sticks to the Winston. Seems to be what he's best at. Top Dragon, I'm curious if he wants to go Genji or Tracer. My initial thought that maybe he wanted to step up on the Tracer when Knife was starting to get diff there at the end of King's Row, or do you bring Top Dragon because he's the stronger Genji, and that can be the answer to Sniper Specialist, or just the fact that you can climb up and access those vertical high grounds a lot easier on the Genji, which is in his wheelhouse. I'm excited to see what happens on Havana. O2 Blast are on match point, and Shanghai Dragons definitely made it close on King's Row, and they had this snowball, they had this avalanche, but just got stopped and couldn't recover.
Yeah, that recovery, that's what really tests teams, Lemon. And Shanghai have so much to recover from here. Down 2-0. We are in the lower bracket. There are no more chances. This is their second chance, and there won't be a third. They don't want to join Seoul Dynasty in being the team knocked out by their contenders rivals. Admittedly, more of a contenders powerhouse are O2 Blast compared to Dreamers, but everyone's power rankings are starting to go out the window now. O2 Blast gear up to try and bring us towards a 3-0 finish and a quick day here on Havana.
All right, out the gates, it's the Fleda Sigma. So no dive to be expected, but the Viper Genji and Hisu Widow versus Probe. At least I got one thing right. A Fly is attacking Probe, as he's at least not being attacked by the enemy team while this is happening. Dragon slowly pushing the...
Check out this difference in support lines here as well. Iron is going to be able to put out a huge amount more shield pressure onto Fleta compared to Gangnam Jin, but when things start to get a little bit closer, the brutal bruising squad of Viper, Fleta, and Gangnam Jin should be able to overwhelm Attack fairly easily. So Attack needs to be very careful with how he positions it and not get overrun.
These Dragons got a good push all the way almost around this corner now, where it's going to be Attack who can solidify himself around the corner and be this roadblock to the Dragons' attack, needing to force him off as Attack is still just stuffing through this choke in that closet side. And the Widows haven't made a huge mark on this fight yet. Hisu's out in the open, wanting to find an LOS on the Gangnam Jin to have a pack. Seems to be successful at doing so. Probe takes a body shot. We'll concede that, just actually drop off the sign position entirely, as Dragons are starting to get into very dangerous positions. Viper on the top side, but Probe with a headshot onto Fleta. How is your Sigma the first one to die? This should be one of the most survivable people in these fights.
Yes, Gold Orb makes it 390 damage from a headshot. That is a lot for a Sigma to survive. Must have forced out the kinetic grasp a little bit earlier. Irony takes out Gangnam Jin as well. Viper won't be around long. I like the usage of the Immortality Field there just to make sure. Irony dies, though. That's bad. That's actually very bad. He's going to take a long time to respawn. They need to try and stagger Fleta here, but Attack isn't willing to take the risk and generate a 3 versus 5 later.
With Irony gone, maybe Fleta feels more confident to step up and take that tank duel. But yeah, your Sigma should be the one that's the #1 priority in terms of heals, because that is the one contesting the cart and the most difficult person to remove. So we need to see more support for Fleta and Attack, especially as Dragons have now lost half their time bank at just staring at each other. But ultimates have been produced. Attack with the first Gravitic Flux to get Fleta, but the Immortality well placed by Iris. Now the counterattack from Dragons. Gravitic Flux from Fleta. Irony with the Transcendence. O2 Blast seem okay for now. The Ant Matrix as a scare tactic. Dragons with the rally start to round the corner. Attack is surrounded and just barely being held on. Good healing by Opener, and the shield is back up for Attack, but I'm not feeling too confident in O2's defense up until maybe Irony's poke seems to overwhelm Dragons and their front line.
When you see Attack in that position, Viper needs to be part of this bruising squad. If you're not going to play the Zenyatta, you need to be able to overwhelm the enemy Sigma with the brawl that you brought to the table, both the Brigitte and the Genji. But Viper's spending so long here trying to shut down these snipers, and while it may be important, it gives plenty of time for Opener to catch up on the lack of heals that Zenyatta brings to the table. At least now Viper has a blade, and Irony was forced to expend the Trance earlier to deal with Attack's over-aggression to try and make Gravitic Flux work!
Oh! Great headshot by Yusu. That's
He's choking!
Wow. He's choking! Dragons, what is going on? They do establish themselves behind the card. 30 seconds left. Viper will be back with Blade. O2 have the Gravitic Flux to start weakening the Dragons once again. Dragons have to play aggressive against a Sigma composition. They're just affording so much time to just slowly but surely getting progress, as O2 Blast one fight away from full holding them.
And now with Irony returning, Viper's going to be so much more vulnerable during the Blade. The Discord Orb should be given over to him soon. It's so hard to pick a target!
Ooh. Blade gets nothing. 1-to-1 trade though, and Attack is gone. That's freedom for Fleta, and you need to take every inch of this real estate. But you don't have Gangnam Jin. You should have Iris behind you. Hisu with a double kill makes this winnable. Body shot into Opener. Hisu is the hero of this attack, and Dragons will not be full health.
Had to be turning up here. The Hisu must increase as we move through Havana. This is determined by Widowmakers, and hey, when you want a Widowmaker, Hisu certainly has a well-earned reputation. Oh, Viper overextends.
The corpse just thrown away by Attack there. Viper.
I don't want this.
Viper back to the Genji, being able to climb up the high ground. A little bit easier, although blades are difficult to pull off without the nano, without maybe a sound barrier to cushion this. But Hisu is on it today. Misses that body shot, but headshot onto top. Dragon gives Hisu the high ground here if he would want it halfway through point B.
6 of 9 final blows for his team. That's what we call a nice setup here for the Widowmaker. Infrasight ready to go. Probe still lacking behind. Now he's going to be feeling increasingly pressured to hide away. Same here for Opener. That's going to be less heals for Attack.
Fleta just overwhelmed and cornered by the Dragon of Top Dragon. And O2 Blast have their supports against the wall too, and Attack can kind of move up and take more space now that Fleta is gone. And Dragons getting staggered from each other. Viper is still on the staircase too. He's getting killed by Iris. Should be okay to get out.
Should be alright. Probe might have other ideas here, and now it's Probe who has the advantage on this infra site. Ooh. Noticed him a position. Hisu constantly noticed. Remember that Viper can do a good amount of scouting here. The same for Gangnam Jin. Using the 3D peek with the shield can actually gather information and gather angles without having to risk their body to do so.
Hisu's lost all of that space he's been working towards, and every time he climbs up, there's going to be a sonic arrow from Top Dragon or Probe with infra sight, so Hisu didn't pick the best time to try and climb up this mid window. Top Dragon had a headshot waiting for him. 34 seconds too, and these picks are just things that Dragons can't afford. They're fighting for every inch to set up Hisu for success. It's been a huge carry in this Havana map. Also diffing Probe in that regard, but 20 seconds remain, and Dragons, these ults have to be everything.
Attack ready to go with the gravitic flex. What a stun! Cancels Flutter's ultimate. It's a true Sig diff.
Attack! Oh, gets his two! His ult got canceled too! So now Dragons have to race towards the car. 2 seconds left. They don't have Hisu. and Fleta?
Oh, that's so sad. Fleta must have been so close. He doesn't have burst mobility on the Sigma. Simply could not get there. Viper, too concerned with trying to punish an overextending Zenyatta. Oh, that is so sad for Shanghai Dragons. They finally had the opening. They finally had the means to punish an O2 Blast who were getting aggressive, getting arrogant, some might say. Here's a look at how Hisu rescued this match from being a first point hold. And to be fair,
3K, so gross.
It is disgusting. It's filthy. It's abhorrent. It's an affront to Jesus Christ. But still Hisu will do it.
Yeah, Hisu was the whole reason they didn't get full health there. If he didn't hit that 3K, they were stuffed. They were done. But apparently their biggest enemy is the objective, because that's 100% on Fleta. I know Viper has been sort of held at bay, not able to extend and kind of roam around the map as much as he would like, which is in part fault to the composition that they're running of the Sigma. You don't have a dive that can just run around with you, so Viper has to adjust to that tempo.
While Hisu may be riding sins, the rest of Shanghai Dragons are riding tragedies. With the C9 as well, we had the monumental life-ending choke from Viper on a 1 HP probe as well. That will probably live on in his memory for a long time, and for a young player, that's a lot of mental weight to have to deal with. Shanghai Dragons, they can still hold this on first, but I would have loved to have seen Hisu play that defensive Widowmaker to be able to play more patiently on the angles and force O2 Blast to move into his zone of influence.
Yeah, maybe it's just a more solid, consistent win condition to have the EMP than to chance the Widow that, you know, did turn up at the end of point A, but wasn't that immediate success that maybe Dragons want in these situations. Better in the neutral, better ultimate. Dragons will see how they will do. 34% to the EMP as the Dragons back to the dive. It's what worked out for them on King's Row, and really in most games they've played, Dragons up top, they're just surrounding O2 Blast. And at the back is Viper, who's currently dueling Top Dragon, I believe. And Dragons are just cycling around the cart, but they will be brought down thanks to this knife from Attack. But Fleta can easily jump back if he wants. He doesn't have armor. He seems to be committed, and no, he leaves. And while there's no presence on the cart, O2 Blast are seconds away from capping.
Quick taps here and there to try and slow the car on its roll forward. A TP upwards from Probe keeps Fleta moving around. Iris needs to be able to keep up with this healing, but it's so hard to even get a bead on the Winston.
Yeah, this Reaper is gonna blow up the Dragons, but Viper and Top Dragon are just dueling and trading in each other's teams. Probe gets stomped on, and O2 Blast stopped in their tracks 2 meters before A.
O2 Blast may have staggered themselves here. Irony probably could have taken a backwards TP rather than a forwards one, but Top Dragon will be able to exit the scene. Once again, it's time for Viper to try and bring on a hero performance on the Tracer, make up for past tragedies. An EMP lies in wait. Spacing here from O2 Blast going to be incredibly important. Irony does not want to get caught, so he can respond with the Suzu.
Yeah, Houston wants to wait for them to leave this room, and now the O2 Blast team is exposed. This EMP is ready for Hisu as the rally and primal use just to see what they can generate. Iris dangerously low. Top Dragon not getting the finish quite yet. EMP now hits 3 of O2 Blast, but Viper evaporates as he tried to run after the backline, and Dragons get antied on their approach by the rampage of attack. So Dragons collapse off of their execution of the EMP, and O2 Blast will be capping A.
And Probe dying so early in that fight as well means that they can now hold over onto that Death Blossom and try and make it a win condition later in the game. 3 minutes and 45 seconds. Shanghai Dragons, they need to bleed each and every second. They need to drag out every fight in order to make sure that O2 Blast cannot capture this. So if O2 Blast make it 60 meters, and Shanghai Dragons mid-season madness hopes are over. Former world champions will be disgraced at the hands of contenders teams.
And the first... No, it's actually Seoul Dynasty Red beat them to be the first Owl team to be knocked out. But of course, Group B did play second. You got the Death Blossom of Probe that got hacked out, which maybe he's thankful for that. Nano from Fleta to get some space, just anchoring himself on the cart to prevent O2 Blast from winning the game and the series. But Fleta's not getting enough support, not without Iris there, who got assassinated. And Dragons have one last fight left.
One last chance for Viper to be the hero. One last chance to rescue your newfound team against your previous compatriots. Hisu's the one to touch for Cart first, but Viper's already dead!
And that Lucio of Gangnam just went to heaven along with the rest of the Shanghai Dragons. O2 Blast sweep the Owl team and move on to face Panthera in the next round.
Despite the heroics we saw on King's Row, O2 Blast return to form and decimate the Shanghai Dragons on their map pick of Havana. Shanghai decided to go here, hoping that Hisu would have a game of his life, and certainly in certain fights he indeed did, but Hisu's Widowmaker abandoned in the second half, and the O2 Blast could easily just run their way through a Shanghai Dragons unprepared for double shotguns, unprepared for the rush, trying to take advantage of a weak link they saw in Fleta and demolishing him where Iris and Gangnam Jin simply could not keep up.
No O2 Blast, they weren't able to reverse sweep Seoul Infernal, but it got so damn close. They did claim the Shanghai Dragons, and they'll move on against Panthera, who have been a surprisingly good team. At least when it comes to this series, this has been something that follows the expectations or the script when it comes to this, but we've had a ton of upsets I would consider today. This one maybe not one of them, especially if you're a fan of contenders. You knew the potential that O2 Blast had.
O2 Blast's potential continues to rise and rise. They could make it all the way to the mid-season madness, and Marvel may well be leading the way for them. While it wasn't a part of that last map, he certainly was integral to the first 2 wins, playing the Winston up against Fleta. Oasis was certainly a big tour de force of primal rages for the player of the match.
It does feel kind of unfair. It's like Marvel's like the college graduate of tanks, and then you have Fleta who's still in tank high school, I guess.
That's in the tank kindergarten. He's only been doing it for a couple of months.
But Marvel has improved so much from team to team. He finds himself on one of the best contenders team iterations that he could find. And it was great to see him. Obviously, the tank diff was so apparent. The execution right out the gates, especially on Oasis City Center. O2 Blast took initiative that put Shanghai Dragons just in a pinch. They made them look silly. They made them look unconfident. And Marvel ran this, putting primals on these supports, making Fleta consider, should I be peeling for them or should I be counter diving? And if you're causing so much stress to the Shanghai Dragons, you're doing the right thing.
Yeah, a lot more surety in Marvel, the ability to control the backline. Unparalleled. We did see bright spots from Fleta on the other side, but certainly Marvel is a huge part of the success currently of O2 Blast, who remains such a huge tour de force in any aspects of Overwatch, whether it's in contenders or now in Owl with our inclusion of contenders teams in the East. So many primal rages in our highlight feed, and rarely an overextended death, to be honest, for Marvel. We're still good at tempering his aggression, even if that does mean that occasionally we see Irony go a bit too far forward to keep him healed.
I think King's Row was the closest match, but Marvel obviously has a lot more experience on tank. and had better coordination with his team, even with the addition of the new players on DPS. But our top 4 is solidified from Group A and Group B. We got the Charge, Spark, Dreamers, and Poker Face in Group A, with Infernal, Fuel, Panthera, and O2 Blast joining as our 4th team of Group B. Remember, there's only 1 spot available for mid-season madness on either bracket. Of course, 2 spots total. And O2 Blast, we've talked about the most likely contenders team, the most powerful contenders team coming into this sort of Pro-Am or knockouts.
Yeah, it feels like Soul Infernal are going to be the team most likely to stand in their way, and we're going to figure out how they feel about the upcoming bracket as we head into our interview. Take it away, Unknown.
나이프 선수 안녕하세요.
안녕하세요.
Hello, Knife. How are you?
안
예, 안 들리는 것
안
같은데요?
들리는 것
I
같은데요.
think you may not be able to hear me.
예, 빠르게 해결하도록 하겠고요. 지금 그리고 여름이긴 여름입니다. 저희 앞에 지금 나방이 날아다니고 있어요.
Well, I'm done here.
나이프 선수
My work here is done.
나이프 선수 안녕하세요.
Hello, Knife.
안녕하세요.
Can you hear us?
드디어
네.
Hello.
안녕하십니까?
Finally.
오토블라스트 팀의 나이프 선수와 인터뷰
지금
나눠보겠습니다.
소리가 너무 작은데 잠깐만요. 이거 소리
네,
어떻게 쓰냐?
Just a minute. Your sound is a little bit too low. Let me get the staff here a little bit.
그리고 이게 선수들이 원래
Oh, it's falling.
아니다 보니까
네.
세팅에 좀 시간이 걸립니다.
잘 들립니다 이제.
네.
아, 네.
저희
Now I can hear you
들릴까요?
clear.
네.
네. 일단 먼저 승리 축하드립니다. 승리하신 소감부터 듣고 싶습니다.
Congrats on your win. How do you feel?
지금 너무 좋습니다. 이긴 팀을 이겼습니다.
I feel really great.
심지어 이제 무려 3대 0의 스코어로
네.
승리를 가져오셨는데 일단 오늘 그렇게 좀 압도적인 스코어로 가져오는데 좀 핵심적인 역할을 한 어떤 전략이라던가 선수가 있다.
I mean, you not just won over an Overwatch League team, but 3-0. Was there a specific tactic or strategy that you came into this game?
역시 팀의 탱커가
네.
중심이
I mean,
되어줘요.
not much. We just, believe that everyone, especially our tank, would be the focal point, and we just played around him, and we won.
그렇군요. 그리고 이제 경기를 좀 복귀를 해봤을 때 사실 첫 번째 세트의 승리가 좀 크게 작용하지 않았나라는 생각이 드는데 본인들이 생각하시기에는 이제 나이프 선수가 생각하시기에는 어디서부터 게임이 이렇게 굴러가기
So,
시작했을까요?
looking back at the game, especially I think map 1 was really crucial, in my opinion. But I mean, for you, what do you think was the most deciding factor of this match? I mean, Kings Row, because it was a very difficult game, but we did manage to persevere in the end, and that's what was really important for us.
네.
코너까지 몰렸을 때 팀에서 어떤 콜이 나왔나요?
So in Kings Row, you were really backed up to a corner. What was the calls that were coming from your team?
침착하게 하자.
Let's just be calm was most of the communications that were coming through our team.
나이프 선수는 정말 눈 감고도 잘하는 것 같다 뭐 이런 얘기 많이 해주시는데 약간 이제 많은 분들도 보고 있으니까 나이프 선수 약간 자기 자랑 한번 해주세요. 나는 이런
I mean, there were
선수다.
some comments on the Korean chat that Knife, you're able to shoot people with even your eyes closed. Do you have any, messages to the fans that you want to
지금
kind of
이제 리그 가려면 몇 년 남았죠?
tell?
이제 리그 갈 수 있는 나이.
오 이제
I mean, I guess what I want to say is I'm old enough for the Overwatch League now.
그럼 이제 어필 조금 더 해주셔야 돼요. 약간 약해요.
You get it. I mean, a little bit. Can you make that message a little bit longer than that? It was a little bit too short.
아무래도 오투가 이제 다시 한번 또 판테라를 만나게 됐는데 판테라 상대로 좀 이긴 경험이 많잖아요.
그렇죠.
판테라 상대로 뭐 3대0 만들 수 있나요?
Now you're going against Panthera, a team that you've been going against a few times already. Do you think that you can do a 3-0 again? I mean, of course.
임페르날한테 최근에 좀 졌잖아요.
네.
임페르날 다시 붙게 되면 제스 선수랑 트레이서
So another question. Your O2's winning streak has come to an end after the match against the Infernal. If you meet the Infernal again, are you confident that you can actually
모습을 보여줬습니다.
win?
그리고 이제 마블 선수도
Yeah, definitely, I think so.
나이프 선수 뭐 지금 만나보고 있는데 그래도 본인 팀에서 이 선수도 이야기를 안 할 수가 없겠다는 선수 있을까요?
Like you got, I mean, you got the interview today, and Marvel got the player of the match. But is there any other honorary mentions that contributed to the win of your team today?
그렇습니다. 그리고 이제 어쨌든
I think
앞으로
everyone.
나아갈 그 여정의 길을 살려가면서 MSM까지 바라볼 수 있게 됐는데 오토블라스트의 최종적인 목표는 어떻게 될까요?
Now you have your sights on MSM right now. You're in a position to be on MSM. Do you have any I guess team goals at this point?
그냥 리그팀 통틀어서 이 팀은
We just want to be the best
우리랑
team.
비슷할 것 같다, 좀 라이벌 구도가 형성될 것 같다는 팀 있어요?
Do you think that there's a team that can like be a rival, an Overwatch team that could be a rival to your team?
와, 벌써 서부를 바라보고 있는.
I guess we're looking at the teams at the West right now because we're already
그리고 이제
the East is out of our league
오토블라스트
now.
굉장히 많은 분들이 응원해주고 계신데 이제 팬분들께 감사하다 혹은 이제 드리고 싶은 말씀이 있으시다면
So a lot of fans are cheering for you. Any final messages to the fans?
미드 시즌 진출해서 좋은 성적 보여드리도록 하겠습니다.
We'll make it to the MSM Mid-Season Madness, and we'll make you guys happy. So please keep cheering for us. That'll be the end of the interview. Back to you, Lemon.
Thanks so much for the translation, Unknown, and I like how we really have to choke out the words from some of these interviews to make sure people are ready to talk. But these interviews are stressful. But today was as well. Look how many sweeps we had leg day.
It was a pretty fast day, Lemon, especially over in Group B. Panthera looking very, very good, and they're going to have to face O2 Blast again, so they need to. Do not want to be repeating that same 3-0 scoreline that happened last time. We also said goodbye to two of our Overwatch League teams, losing to Dreamers, which I think was very much an upset, but Shanghai Dragons may have been a little bit easier to see coming.
Yeah, and the second upset beyond that one is Panthera sweeping SPG, in my opinion. After SPG defeated the Shanghai Dragons, my expectations personally were very much higher for them. But obviously, Panthera's improvements from the open bracket have been incredible to see. And they've just become this dark horse for me, especially with Fate. You heard it from them in the interview, how much Fate's leadership has helped this team. And this is how the bracket has shaped up. Just to point out again, our top 4 teams: Charge, Spark, Dreamers, and Poker Face from Group A, and Soul Infernal, Fuel, Panthera, and O2 Blast from Group B. Remember, there's only one spot for the mid-season madness per bracket.
Yeah, the showdown in our winners bracket here of Group A is going to certainly be an absolute banger, which we're expecting Guangzhou Charge to walk away from, likely with a win coming into this as favourites in our #1 seed. But Poker Face, I think, definitely a dark horse in this bracket that could potentially bring out some surprises against either of our Owl teams that do survive.
It's been a fun day of upsets, things going according to the script, interviews that are entertaining, also a lot of smack talk, which I've been loving to see. Sometimes when I can understand it, sometimes when I can't. But yeah, there'll be more matches next weekend. And yeah, it was cool to also have Dor and Herix on the cast today for the first time in APAC. They did an incredible job. Make sure you show them some love on social media. And Avril, who came in to kind of fill in the gaps while Achilleos is out. So, fun day.
Group B, of course. This is a eulogy for the Shanghai Dragons, to be honest, Lemon. Soul Infernal standing proud, likely to be the winner who advances out of this bracket, but O2 Blast could come back with a vengeance, and of course Dallas Fuel and Panthera are still full of surprises, but for a lot of people, the mid-season is going to be about soul-searching for the Shanghai Dragons, and while it might be easy for armchair analysts on the internet to lay a lot of blame at the hands of Fletter and the Roll Swap, to be honest, it sits at the feet of Moon and Bebe as coaches. They need to be able to support Fletter better. If they are forcing him to play in this role, then they need more tank coaching or more support to come his way. As we look at what's going to be coming up tomorrow, we've got a bunch of matches, and all of them are going to be bangers.
Dreamers is just like my #1 dark horse now of this both brackets. The fact that this is the 6th seed from Contenders Korea, upsetting teams like the Seoul Dynasty, who had the addition of Sunjun. I was on the Seoul Dynasty Cope train when they added this new Tracer player over Prophet. They were looking incredible. I'm looking very bright because it's morning now. And then they subbed out PH today to play the OG Prophet, and then they lost. So Not sure what's going on in the Seoul Dynasty camp. We'll have to think about it next time.
Yeah, we certainly need to take a lot of time to try and figure out where they're going wrong and how they're going to be iterating, because it feels like in the time that they've had to try and iterate during our qualifiers and during the knockouts, Seoul came so close, but they kind of came close through necessity. And have a look at this. Tickets open down below. You can come and watch Mid-Season Madness live in person. We have no idea who's going to be there yet, apart from, I believe, probably Atlanta Reign and Houston Outlaws. I think are both qualified now, so you can see some of the best players in the world. I know that you all want to scream at Lip hitting a fat EMP on LAN. For APAC, though, it's still all up in the air as to who you'll see here live at LAN in Korea.
Charge, Spark, Dreamers, Pokerface, Infernal, Fuel, Panthera 02. If you're a fan of either of these teams, then you'll want to cash in your tickets, but it's an exciting time. And the broadcast will be covering it, of course. So there's going to be some fun segments. We'll get the mix-up of APAC versus NA. And really, we can decide which region is better at the end of the day. Even though we had kind of our mini region gauntlet over on the APAC side, having Korea, Australia, APAC proper from contenders. So it's going to be a battle.
There's still the Optimals close as well, which is where our contenders team can win everything. O2 Blast can go all the way to the end. Lemon, it still isn't shut out yet. It's but tomorrow we will be, don't forget, NA just if you're one of those who doesn't throw Esports. We'll see you. Just worried about the responsibility for that tank in that role. And now we will see you tomorrow. Bye bye.